Hello there, Transformers fans. I enjoyed doing the earlier video that I did so much that I thought I would do another one. I reviewed issue number 1 of the U.S. Transformers Marvel comic. Now I'm gonna review. Well, I'm not gonna go quite as in depth because I don't want the video to be incredibly long. In one issue, I think I was 20 minutes, but I think with the U.S. run, the first 12 issues basically form a coherent story, and then after that, there's the next story. So I've always liked the first 12 issues. I mean, I like them all, but I mean, I think they kind of form a whole in a way. So we're gonna do the first 12 U.S. stories, but we're also gonna do my UK comics. I was gonna do them separately, like finish all of the U.S. and go to the UK, but I thought, well, because the UK comics are a little different. Excuse me. They incorporate all of the U.S. stories and then add more stories. So I thought, well, I'll just show you, I'll show you them all. So let me show you the covers first. Let's go with the U.S. comics. Now, excuse me, I'm sorry. I find that I'm missing a few of my UK comics. I don't have the entire set, but I had more comics than I have now. There must be somewhere else. But anyway, this is issue number 2 of the U.S. Cover. So if you remember, issue number 1 ended with that skirmish, let's call it, at the drive-in movie theater, where Prowl and company retreated to draw the Decepticons' fire away, but they inadvertently left Bumblebee behind, and Bumblebee went off with Spike Wickety, who took him to his garage, well, to his father's garage, in the hopes that his father could repair him. That's where this one starts off. So remember, it's supposed to be only a 4-issue limited series, so this is issue number 2, where Megatron and Optimus Prime face off. Okay, and actually, I can show you the cover of the UK comic, because the one I have it's the second part of that. Oh, I should mention, the UK comics they're formatted differently. There's a main feature and then a bunch of, there's like a secondary feature and then some extra things. So the comic itself, I'm not sure page for page which is larger, but the main feature is only half the size of the US comic. So there was a comic before this one. This is issue number 4. Issue number 3 would have had, the first part of issue 2 of the U.S. comic, if that makes sense. Issue 4 has a second part. So usually they'll use their own artwork for one issue, and then they'll copy the U.S. artwork for another issue. So that's what I have, the one that copies the U.S. artwork. Sometimes they do their own artwork for both covers, but this one they don't. And then too, like about half of the UK storyline is brand new, never published in the US. So this is issue number 4, issue number 2 of the US, issue 4 of the UK. Alright, hope that clears it up. We'll go over them a little more extensively later. Here's issue number, I have 2 copies of this. I have issue number 3 of the US comic. I'm not sure why I have 2 copies. I must have, one of them I probably bought, I think I bought this one back in 1984 when it came out, or 85. And this is probably one I bought because maybe this was falling apart, I'm not sure. Maybe I found a good deal on it. But that's the issue number 3 of the UK comic. So there you have that. So, of the US comic. This is gonna blow my mind here. Okay, so there's that. Now here's issue number 5 of the, and issue number 6 of the UK comic, which has the US issue number 3. It's the same storyline, I believe. Oh, okay, I must have bought these later. I don't know. I'm not sure. Anyway, okay, so this is the comic itself. Okay, there you are. It's a different price tag on it. I don't know if I bought these. No, I had to have had these before. I'm not sure. Anyway, that's what it is. Okay, so that's number 3. Now, issue number 4 of the U.S. comic, that ended the 4-issue limited series. So it was on hiatus for a while. Well, it was, they thought it would be over. No, I didn't, actually. I was going to say, no, they already knew they were going to continue it because they were going to wrap everything up, but then they left it open because they knew they were going to start a continual story, but that was a few months later. So the UK comic, they had, again, they were bi-weekly at the time, but they still had some time to make their own stories, so that's when they started making their own stories. But anyway, this is issue number 4. The 4-issue, well, I love the 4-issue series. I don't think there's any one that's better. This is probably one of my favorites. I liked issue 1. If I had to take it into what I liked best of the 4 issues of the US story, issue number 1 is definitely the best, in my opinion. This is probably the second, and then issue number 2, and then issue number 3. Issue number 3 is they incorporated Spider-Man into the story, and it's basically a jaunt with Spider-Man and Gears, who are basically rescuing Sparkplug. It's a okay story, but I don't know. I'm not a big fan of mixing those kinds of franchises. I know that Transformer comics have a long history of mixing with G.I. Joe, but Spider-Man was just... I don't know if I'm a fan of it. And I guess Marvel wasn't either. Originally, they were going to have all of this happen in the Marvel Universe, and then they took that idea away, which makes sense, because, you know, giant robots fighting each other, they don't want to have the complication of, well, where are the superheroes? Where, you know, like, how come the Avengers can't do anything, or Iron Man, or I guess he's one of the Avengers, but, you know, how come these superheroes can't do anything? Well, you know, that's aside. So after the Spider-Man comic, no more with the superheroes. Anyway, issue number 4. And let's see, I guess I don't have issues 7 and 8 of the UK comic, which actually which was the issue number 4 of the US comic. I don't have that, or I don't have it here at least. So here's issue number 12. So issues 9, 10, 11, and 12 were the Man of Iron storyline, which actually that's the only storyline that was reproduced in the US comic. They did that around issue 33, 34, somewhere around there, I think. So this is issue number 12 of the... Sorry, yes, 12 of the UK comic. Let me open the UK comic. I just want to show you how it looks. I was going to show you the covers and go over them again, but it's already... We're 6 minutes in, and I haven't even gotten I'm about a third of the way as far as where I wanted to go. So bear with me here. But this is issue number 12. It's in pretty good shape, as you can see. Let's have a look in depth here. Okay, let's turn the camera around. Okay, issue 12. The Man of Iron series, it was actually not just a UK original, but it was a very unique kind of story, because this was the only story. Well, there was only one storyline before Simon Furman joined. Original UK storyline, and this is it. And it's a very different kind of story than most Transformer comics, whether it's Simon Furman or what Bob Budiansky was doing in the US. This one's more of a gothic, not gothic, kind of a, hard to explain, more of a horror, it's not scary, but it has a kind of a gothic horror flavor to it, in my opinion, which is something, again, that you didn't really see in the UK comics before or after. But, so as you can see, I don't want to ruin my comic. Okay, as you can see here, the comic has puzzles. Oh, they have a fact file, which is basically like in the US comic, they had a Transformers Universe mini series of 4 issues where they basically they give all the specs of all of the characters. And something else they have here, which again, this shows something that you cannot do in the US or UK now. These little kids, they would publish their address and everything and ask for a pen pal. Now, of course, nowadays, people probably don't write letters to each other as much, but too, in this day and age, it probably isn't a good idea for kids to put their address in a published form. So this just shows just how much the world's changed since then. But I don't know if they started doing this yet, but what I really liked with the UK comics was that you could write to a character that might not have started quite yet at this point. Oh, here is something I really enjoyed in the early UK comics, the Chromobots. Okay, so they have, this is a 2-page story that was continuous, and it's basically, from what I remember, it's basically a humorous, and again, it's 2 pages, so it's not, like, really, in-depth, but it's kind of the Transformers in a way, but rather than the Transformers being giant robots, imagine if the Transformers are the size of the toys of the Transformers from the 80s. So they're living robots, but they're toy size for the most part. As you can see, the human character encounters one of them. It's pretty cool. I really enjoyed this. For some reason, people either don't remember it or they didn't like it. It really wasn't very well received. I don't know it at the time, because obviously this is before the internet. I just know what I liked. But I really liked this story, and it didn't last very long. I think probably by issue 50, maybe even earlier, it was done. Okay, so an advertisement for the Return of the Jedi comic, the weekly comic, or is it weekly? Maybe bi-weekly. Then here's the main feature, Man of Iron, in full color. Oh, I should mention, as you can see, quite a bit of the UK comic was in black and white at this point. So let's see here. This is the last part of Man of Iron. Okay. Oh, a calendar. Very nice. So Jazz here. Excellent. Okay. So the backup feature, which is usually a reprint of a US Marvel feature, this one is of Machine Man. I do remember Machine Man being a backup feature for some time. I like Machine Man. I like the backup features. A lot of the people who read the UK comics, from what I understand now, and even then, they didn't read the backup features. I read the whole thing. This is something that did not last a long time, but I liked it. The Robot Roundup. It basically talks about real-life robots and also movie robots from different franchises. Because, again, the Transformers, with being living robots, I tried to keep that robot theme throughout the course of the comic. Again, something I really liked, but a lot of people didn't. And a puzzle, and continuation of the second feature, Machine Man. Well, that's some color here. Oh, yeah, Matt and the Cat. It's funny, now, this is something I did not like very much. Matt and the Cat and then Combat Colin. This lasted a long time through the comic. Matt and the Cat and then Combat Colin. I think Combat Colin was better received than Matt and the Cat, but I didn't like either one of them. I didn't think they were funny. I liked Matt and the Cat better, actually, but, you know, I didn't really... I wasn't a fan of either one of them. Now, Crazy Bird, does it give the author's name? It doesn't give the name, but I'm pretty sure Mike Crazy Bird wrote Matt and the Cat. He also wrote the Chromobots. But, you know, he can't please everybody, and that's why it's cool that there were all these features in this comic, because, you know, some things that you might like, I might not like, and vice versa. So that's a look into one of the UK comics. That was issue number 12. So, I guess it's only fair to show you what the U.S. comic looks like as well. I'm just assuming that most of my viewers are from the U.S. because, honestly, on the internet, I think most people, even on the comments, they're Americans and they assume everyone else is American. So, maybe I shouldn't assume that. But still, you maybe still haven't, but even if you are American, you might not have seen what comics from the 1980s look like. So let's go on to that. Well, before we go on to the next U.S. comic, I'm sorry, which continues that 4-story arc. Like I said, there was a time where there was no, the U.S. comic was months in a hiatus, so the UK comic kept going, and they printed their own their own unique stories. So that's what these comics are. So issue number 13, The Enemy Within. This is Simon Furman. Oh, I should mention, Simon Furman is a very well-known Transformers writer. He wrote the UK comic line for most of it. Then he actually went to the US comic line, too, after Bob Budiansky had enough, basically. And he also wrote Dreamweave in the 21st Century, as well as, I think, some IDW. So he's a pretty prolific comic book writer for the Transformers. Well, this is where he got to start. It's a really good start, in my opinion. It's a really good storyline. Basically, there's an accident where Brawn gets electrocuted and he kind of loses his way. He sees the rest of the Autobots is basically taking advantage of him, and he goes his own way. And in the meantime, too, that's the enemy within, because Brawn is within the Autobot community, and Starscream, of course, is up to his Starscreaming, and so he's trying to take over the Decepticon leadership, and he's kind of banished, and he does his own thing. So it's basically Starscream is the enemy within the Decepticons, and Brawn is the enemy within the Autobots. And once Brawn gets his moral compass and everything back, you know, his person, I wouldn't say his person, he didn't lose his memory, kind of, he just kind of lost his moral compass, I'll put it that way. Once he gets that back, there's kind of a not contrived, there's a reason for it, but Starscream and Brawn have a fight to the death, but neither one of them die, you know, but still, it's a pretty cool storyline. So this is issue 13. This is still when they're drawing the characters kind of toy accurate, so you can see Brawn has the kind of the clamps for hands as opposed to individual fingers. Sideswipe looks nothing like the way he usually does. Jazz looks pretty similar, but he's still very toy accurate. I like the toy accurate drawings, though, myself. But yeah, that's 13. Here's issue 14. I love the Optimus Prime toy. I like that, like, the eyes, kind of like, not Cylon eyes, but the eyes were kind of very wide and very narrow. I like that. So here, issue 14. Issue 15, this is part of where, issue 15 and 16, the cover shows what's going on, where Brawn and Starscream are fighting to the death. So here's 15, the beginning of their fight, and 16. Brawn, I like Brawn as a character. He was a mini-bot. He was one of those smaller toys, but he was the second strongest Autobot on the 1984's toy line, from 1984 line. And it's kind of cool because you would think it would be Trailbreaker because he's the second biggest next to Optimus, but nope, it's Brawn. And I like Brawn's character. I always did. Issue 17, Megatron's last laugh, where Megatron gets a laugh. You could just picture Frank Walker's evil cackle for Megatron here. Issue 18, the Ark is invaded. Now, the Ark is, of course, the Autobot spaceship that crash landed. Issue 19. Now, in issue number 1 of the U.S. comic line, they mention Auntie, but Auntie's basically Teletran 1 from the comics, the brain, the computer brain of the Ark spaceship. And here, Auntie, again, she also lost not just her moral compass. She didn't, as you remember from the first issue, she got damaged and didn't remember the Autobot Decepticon war, and so she's basically she immobilized both parties when they were fighting on the Ark, and said that only one of them will survive. She is going to decide which one is right, and so that's how that happens here. Issue number 20. Only Windcharger and Ravage were not immobilized. So because Windcharger's magnetic powers and Ravage's electromagnetic spectrum or something of that nature, I forget, but they work together to try to stop Auntie. Issue number 21. You don't really see Megatron using his ability to suck the energy from a black hole often. They mention that in his specs. Yeah, you rarely see that, but that's what he's doing here. I like the way the artwork here, where you see kind of like that blackness with stars inside. That's the part of the black hole energy. Okay, so I said I had some missing... Nope, actually, I don't. No, I'm sorry. That comes later. So, issue number 5 is an iconic issue as far as the cover goes, which also is duplicated in issue number 22 of the UK comic. The Transformers are all dead. And issue 4, I should mention, the cliffhanger that issue 4 ended on was... it's hard to explain. The Autobots were very low on fuel. But Sparkplug, and they had the Decepticons had kidnapped Sparkplug to make them fuel, and Sparkplug poisoned the fuel. So when the Decepticons attack the Autobots, being fully fueled, attacking the barely fueled Autobots, they do defeat them, but then the Decepticons also kind of pass out from the bad fuel, and the Autobots think that they won. But then Shockwave comes and blows them up, and they incapacitates them. So that's why it starts off they're all dead, but they're not all dead. Of course, Shockwave revives the Decepticons, and he has the Autobots hanging up like a meat locker. It's actually, let me see, I can probably find it. Since this is a larger format, I'll show you here what happens there. That was kind of tragic. I mean, imagine, again, as a kid, you're reading this, and your heroes are all deactivated and hanging, except for Optimus Prime. He is actually a disembodied, he's a head, and they want Optimus Prime to use the Matrix to create new life. The Matrix from the Transformers movie from '86, it's not a physical thing, it's more of a program where it gives life to life with robots. That's what they want to use him for. And eventually, he does, Optimus Prime is able to give the Matrix to Spike, that program. So Spike is able to manipulate metal, but the residual parts of the Matrix allow Shockwave to give life to the Constructicons, which he built. He tries to do the same to Jetfire, which he built, but is unable to because that was only the last vestiges of the Matrix. And so he's hunting Spike to get the Matrix power back. That comes a little bit later, though. While I'm talking about this, so that's issue 22, as I mentioned, which is the first part of issue 5 of the U.S. comic. Here's the second part, issue number 23. And this is a UK-only cover. It's not a copy of the cover. Okay. So issue number 6 of the U.S. comic, Circuit Breaker is a character that, comic readers at least, she's pretty well known. Okay, so GB Blacklock is a very rich person who has these oil fields and stuff, and the Decepticons attack one of them. Josie Beller is a teenage child, I shouldn't say child, a teenage genius who built the security system and everything for the oil fields. When the Decepticons attack, particularly Shockwave, he attacks. He shoots the oil field, and an electrical feedback immobilizes Josie Beller. She's completely paralyzed, but she's a genius, as I said. So she built this wire circuitry to give her the ability to not just walk again, but to fly and shoot electricity out of her hands. It's pretty cool. But she's circuit breaker. She's a little unhinged because she just wants to destroy all robots, and she won't listen to the fact that the Autobots are not the Decepticons. The Autobots are good robots, but she just wants to destroy them all. And as Josie Beller, she's first encountered here. This is issue 6 of the U.S. comic. Again, the U.K. comic has issue 24 and 25. So 24 is a UK only cover. Shockwave's Act of War, where he's shooting at the oil well, and issue 25 is, again, the same cover from issue 6. Now, Shockwave basically wrests the control of the Decepticon leadership from Megatron. Remember, Megatron also was, like I said, the Autobots are hanging up, the Decepticons are being revived, Megatron, he's being revived, but he doesn't even wait until the revival process is over. When Shockwave says that he's going to lead the Decepticons, Megatron gets mad and fights him. He's not even back to his full strength, so Shockwave does beat him. Because Shockwave and Megatron were pretty much almost even strengths before that. I mean, when they were both at their full potential. Shockwave is just a little bit less, but since Megatron isn't at his full potential, Shockwave beats him, and he becomes leader of the Decepticons for a time. So, which transitions to issue number 7 of the U.S. comic. Ratchet, I should mention, Ratchet was the only Autobot to escape that incapacitation, because he went to take Sparkplug to the hospital. The long story. But anyway, Ratchet goes to try to see if he can free the captured Autobots in the Ark, and he encounters Megatron. But Megatron makes a deal with Ratchet, saying that if he can defeat Shockwave and make him Decepticon leader again, he'll free the Autobots. Of course, Megatron doesn't really plan on keeping that deal, but Ratchet knows that, and he's able to use the Dinobots. I'll tell you now. He uses the Dinobots to make sure that that deal is kept and that the Autobots are revived. So this is issue 7 of the U.S. comic, which again is printed in issue number 26 and I think 27 of the UK comic. But like I said, I'm missing some issues. This is where I'm missing issues of the UK comic, so I'll stop here with that. Now, here is something that's kind of interesting. This is a reprint fairly recently of this issue number 7 of the U.S. comic. And another reprint, too. Okay, so that's, I don't know, 10 years old or so? Actually, I can tell you when it was printed. It was printed... Okay, I'm sorry. August 1985 was the original printing, and it was printed... Okay, I'm not seeing it now, and I don't... 2006. So 18 years old. This is comics 18 years. The reprint's even 18 years old. I didn't know it was that old. Okay, so issue number 8 of the U.S. comic, the Dinobots. Remember I said I'd show you how the U.S. comic format runs. I'll show you that right now. So let's have a look at the U.S. comic here. I should mention too, at least for me, I knew, again, being able to get both the US and UK comics, it was easy for me to know this, but I knew that that there was a difference in the US and UK comics. The UK comics are, I think they were better, a lot more cerebral, a lot less just, the same old thing, in my opinion. But, I mean, don't get me wrong, I love the US comics, but the UK comics I think were better. I mean, the storylines were better. Anyway... The US comics very different. It just starts right on with the story. There's nothing else, like puzzles, the backup feature, none of that, just the story. There's advertisements, of course, but the story itself is just what the comic has, basically. Here's an advertisement right now, okay? Another advertisement. So, again, there's nothing else in the comic besides the main story. I should mention, there might be letters to the editor by this point. Maybe not. Huh. Were there letters with the editor? Maybe not. I don't know. The Marvel, hype box, where they basically should give a checklist of everything that Marvel's making. A message from, not Stan Lee, Jim Shooter. I know Jim Shooter. I thought Jim Shooter was, I guess he was on Marvel. Yeah, I know who Jim Shooter is. Okay, so just a couple of, throwbacks like that. There still isn't, still is no letters to the editor. But, like I said, the US comic you were writing to the editor, the UK comic you were writing to a character. Of course, it's the editor answering it, or the writer, or whatever, but still, it's kind of cool, because, as a kid, writing to the character, writing the Soundwave, writing the Grimlock, that's pretty cool. Okay, so here's issue number 8. Issue number 9 features Circuit Breaker on the cover. This is when the very first appearance of Circuit Breaker as Circuit Breaker. And she is very formidable. The only human, really, to be able to, hold their own against the Transformers. G.B. Blacklock, like I told you, he was that rich he owned oil fields and different things of that nature, gas stations. Well, the Autobots befriend him. They explain who they are, because at this point, unlike the cartoon, mankind really doesn't know much about the Transformers. They know that these giant robots are running around. They don't know there's good and bad ones. They don't know anything. But they do befriend G.B. Blacklock. And so Jazz and Wheeljack went to talk to G.B. Blacklock. And Frenzy and Starscream went to attack that area. And so the four of them are gonna have a fight. But Circuit Breaker comes and just starts, wrecking all of them. Sadly, this is kind of something that goes on in the story. A lot of times, just because of circumstance, it isn't like she's targeting the Autobots specifically, but she winds up hurting Autobots more than she hurts the Decepticons. So she really is a menace, Especially because, again, again, I guess, you don't know how people are going to react, and this is, again, a comic, so you don't know anyway. But the Autobots are not, it's pretty obvious the Autobots are not, the bad guys, but she attacks the Autobots almost all the time. I wanted to see if the letters to the... Oh, I remember this cover. I remember seeing... Secret Wars 2 was coming out at this time. I know more about it now than I did then. I only remember seeing the advertisements for it in the comics at the time, especially... Really, only this comic, because I think the only thing I collected was this and Action Comics, which is Superman. So I would have only seen it in this, but... Yeah, anyway. That tells you around the time this was being made. I don't see letters to the editor in this one either. But anyway, like I said, letters to the editor was a thing going on. Oh, and speaking of Secret Wars too, as well, Circuit Breaker appeared first in Secret Wars so that Marvel would own the character as opposed to Transformers owning it. And that's why for a while there was a big to-do about Circuit Breaker. Some of the reprints where they made the trade paperbacks and reprints of the Marvel stories, they couldn't include Circuit Breaker in there. I think they can now. It was just a big mess. I don't really have... Well, I have a couple reprints there, but I think those... I'm not sure. I'm talking really about the trade paperbacks where they couldn't include Circuit Breaker. I don't have any of those because I have the issues themselves. I'm not a big trade paperback person. Anyway, there you go. There's that. Issue number 10 introduces the Constructicons and Devastator, which is the first... He's the first combiner Transformer. So... That was a pretty cool issue. I remember issues 9 and 10 because they came out and then on the playground. We talked about the issues that came out. And then I think with my friends I talked about them too. So there you are. Issue 11 introduces Jetfire, but as you can see, he's a Decepticon. He doesn't actually have sentience yet. So again, like I said, because Spike had the Matrix, but he's just kind of a remote-controlled device. And he's more than a match for Cliffjumper and Bluestreak. That's who's on the cover here. You can't tell that's Bluestreak because he's green, but that's Bluestreak, and that's Cliffjumper. Those are two characters that really didn't have a lot to do in the US storyline. They were more in the UK story. I think this might be the only time they're spotlighted in the whole story of the Transformer comics in the US line. But Jetfire, and it looks like, Spike, his girlfriend Jessie, and his father Sparkplug, they're kind of trapped in the middle. But remember, Spike has the metal powers right now of the Matrix. So he actually completely... In fact, I'll show you that little, that scene. I'll show it to you in the UK comic because I can get that better. Here is the reprint of that. Like I said, I'm missing a bunch of the UK issues. But this is issue number 38, and this has Jetfire. It's the second part of issue 11 of the US storyline. And it's this big... spread. I remember seeing this a lot, where Spike is able to completely dismantle Jetfire. Where is this now? Yes, here we are. Let me see if I can show this to you. So Spike, with the power of his mind, dismantled Jetfire. So that was a pretty cool page spread. Now let me see here. Are they are the letters going around? Yes, there we are. I wanted to show you what the letters looked like in the Transformer comics. This is in the UK comic. So let's see here. As you can see in the very first page, page 2, I guess that would be, because page 1 is the cover technically. But the table of contents shows sound waves, which is basically when you wrote the sound wave. So let's have a look at that. Page 23. 17. This Machine Man is still this backup feature here. Ah, here's sound waves. Yes. So as you can see, people could write the sound wave and he'd answer. And I remember too, because Soundwave doesn't like Autobots, whenever he mentions Autobots, he makes a patup sound, a patup word here, right here. Optimus Prime, patup. But you find out later that means he's spitting, which is kind of cool. You find it out like towards the end of his storyline, towards the end of his answering letters. Pretty cool though. Like I said before, I wrote the sound waves a couple times, but because it's by this point it's a weekly comic, and because of mailing and everything, really they only took letters from England and published them, none from the Commonwealth, maybe Ireland and Scotland, but definitely not from Canada, Australia, South Africa, New Zealand. But, you know, still, hey, there you are. So here is, well, that was issue number 38. This is 39 and 40, which is the end of the this is the copying of the reprinting of the issue 12 of the U.S. story. So issue 39 is actually the U.S. cover as well. This is the UK comic, but I mean it copies the U.S. cover. And issue number 40, the logical conclusion of the Shockwave versus Optimus Prime. Okay, and here is the actual U.S. comic, which shows that Optimus Prime Autobot Killer. And what basically happens is, remember how I said before that his head was disconnected? Well, Shockwave builds a head. He says that he's going to exchange Optimus for something from the Autobots, and he does, but it's not really Optimus, it's that head that he remote controls, and when the head's put back on, he just starts shooting at the Autobots. So Shockwave tried to pull a whammy on them. And he succeeded. He damaged a lot of Autobots before the real head's able to come back, and that's because, as I said, Spike is now controlling Jetfire, and he has him fly the real head to Optimus Prime, and that's when he fights Shockwave, and Shockwave is defeated, and that's the end of that storyline. Now let's see here. Are there letters to the editor? Oh, I don't see letters to the editor even this far in for the U.S. storyline. I know that they did a lot of letters to the editor. Again, I guess it depends on if they had space for it or whatever. But I don't see any right now. So anyway, that will end this video. It's showing the first 12 issues of the U.S. comic. Well, issues 2 to 12, I should say, and the UK comic that corresponds to that, and even the new stories that were in between those issues. I hope you really enjoyed this. Please leave comments below. Tell me if you collected these comics, if you know of any of them, if you had the US comics, the UK comics, or the trade paperbacks now, or never heard of these before. So please tell me that. Again, please no bad language in the comments, okay? Thank you very much. Have a nice day.